You and your brother started the Reebok company. At the time, you were much bigger than Nike, certainly far ahead of Puma and anybody else I can think of. My first introduction with Reebok was when I was on 8th grade. My very, very good friend ordered the Ringo in our high school. It was the first one. His parents went to the United States. He came back with this pair of shoes. We were mesmerized. He was the most popular kid for about 3 months because he was wearing this pair of Reebok. We only heard of it. We never actually saw it. Talking about late 80s. And it was just tremendously cool. And I remember we would just all look at him with awe. And you started this company, it wasn't an easy start. You come from a shoemaker company, and left the family shoe business, and you and your brother started the Reebok company.
Right.
So that must have been quite a journey, and it certainly takes a good amount of courage. And then, throughout the year, you built this thing into the largest and the greatest shoe company. At the time, you were much bigger than Nike, much
Mm.
bigger than Adidas, certainly far ahead of Puma and anybody else I can think of. And you sort of like came out of left field, and it's quite remarkable. Eventually, you've exited in 1989. Your company was making $1 billion at the time. Could you just share with me, as one business owner to the next, why that particular moment? Why exit? I'm just very curious about that.
Yeah. Well, I'd been working at Reebok for quite some time, in fact, a long time, and I'd gone through all the challenges. By the time end of 1989 came along, there were not many challenges for me. It had got to that point where I was more or less waving the flag and just traveling around the world probably 2 or 3 times a year. Nice business class, arriving, being picked up by a limousine, going to the best hotels, and just talking Reebok. But as if you've read the book, I don't know if you read the book, but coming through all those challenges, and you get to the point where you're really not doing anything. Because we have a lot of lawyers, we have a lot of accountants, and a lot of people in between, designers, doing a lot of work. And I felt it was time for me to just step back a bit and see some other things. So yes, by the end of 89, I guess for me the challenge had gone, and so it was a matter of lying down again, taking it easy a bit, and having some sunshine, traveling the places I wanted to be, as against just jumping on and going to the distributors around the globe.
Interesting, very interesting answer. I have a lot of passion for my business, and people ask me, or sometimes I bring it up as a conversation. I don't think I'll ever retire. I love what I do too much, but I suppose that there is a point in time where you're so diversified and everyone's doing everything for you, and kind of like the magic might be diminished to such an extent, and you're like, well, I guess I'm not that pivotal or not that needed anymore. I totally get it, totally understand. There were some challenging years, right? You didn't go from zero to $1 billion. It took a lot, and you certainly had an interesting journey. Part of it was to come into the United States and take over that markets. And so from 1968 to 1979, about a good 11 years, here you are traveling to the United States year after year, quarter after quarter, from Chicago to other places, and you just couldn't break through. Were there any moments in time where we said, look, it's enough is enough, I'm just not going to make it here in the US? Was there any points when you wanted to give up?
Well, no, not really. I think the main challenge really was it's a big market, a very big market, and to get onto that market, it's how to get the influence. And we tried. I had 6 failed attempts. In fact, I was with one guy for 4 years. 4 years we tried to get into the market, but I guess I was probably relying on whoever was the distributor to find the influencers. And we we couldn't get the influencers. It just didn't happen. So, and one of them was an ex-Adidas distributor, because Adidas had
Mhm.
about 6 different distributors at one time
Mhm.
in the USA, and then they took them all over and took it in a house. So one of them was an ex-Adidas distributor, but for whatever
Mhm.
reason, we didn't get that little bit of magic that you need to get over the line and create a good market. Until, of course, in 1979, when we got the 5-star shoes, and that gave us credibility. Runner's World gave us that little bit of that extra credibility. It made us into a company that people wanted. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
from trying to push into the market, suddenly we got the influence we needed. And once you
Mhm.
get that influence, that started the growth. But yes, it was not a sort of short trip or an overnight success, or maybe it was an overnight success, but it took 20 years to get there.
Overnight, over 20 years.
Yeah.
Very well said. And I'm just, and eventually, I mean, you moved the company when you did break to the United States, you moved the company from 9 million to $900 million in revenue. And it seems to me, and I read a book recently, or actually, no, it was a good couple of years ago, called The Tipping Point by McDowell. A fantastic book. It sounds to me that your story sort of like is around that, right? You needed that one distributor, that one influencer. Today we use the word influencers, right, to really create a kind of recognition in order to break into the market. Am I correct about that? Are
Oh,
you
yeah.
familiar with the book, by the way, The Tipping Point?
Well, by the time we did arrive in America, the running market, which we were part of, the running market had grown tremendously. So we had a good big market there. But for us, we got that tipping point because all through Reebok's years, we had to look for white space, and white space for us was, where can we be that either nobody else is, or where we can really make a difference. And if we look at the UK, by the time Jeff and myself left the family business and set up our own company, Adidas owned the soccer market. And that was the big market. If
Hmm.
you were into the
Yes,
soccer market, that was the big one. So we couldn't get it.
tremendously large. Mhm.
Yeah, we couldn't get into that, so we had to look at other sports, track and field, particularly cross country and fell running, different areas of athletics. And it's only when we really became number one in the UK in our sports. And it's then, was it a matter, do you increase your offering? In other words, do we go to other sports, tennis, basket, whatever, soccer, or do we expand our market? Do we go and become more global? And we decided
Mhm.
on global, and that's when we decided to try to get to USA. We got to the USA, as I've said, but we were always looking for that white space. And we've been on the USA market probably 2 years, maybe 3, when one of our technical reps, he came across with aerobics. And when we
Mhm.
got into aerobics, that was the big
Okay.
white space. And that big white space, when Jane Fonda bought a pair of our aerobic shoes, that created such an avalanche of orders. It was so big. So our main problem then was not too much finance in it. The main problem was production,
Mhm.
manufacturing.
I see. So she was the tipping point. You've asked me before if I read the book. I made a mistake. I bought the book. I bought it in Spanish, and I bought it on. My Spanish is good. It's not that good. I'm gonna have to get it again. Um, but it was very interesting. So that was the tipping point. Jane Fonda at the time in the late 70s, early 80s. Um, she was huge. She's still huge, right? But she was
Mm.
tremendous, and she took it on. Wonderful, wonderful. The white space that you refer to in your conversations, I mean, that's something that really got me thinking. As a business owner, I'm always thinking, where is my white space? Where is it that I'm most needed? I pivoted about 7, 8 years ago from the advisory side of the commercial real estate into the private equity, and instead of just being the kind of guy or the kind of firm that represents groups and gives them advice of how to do, how to buy, how to raise capital. we've pivoted into putting money of our own and leading investments, and that made a big difference to a lot of our high net worth, made a big difference to a lot of the public company that invest with us, and so on. So I think that, we're always looking to see where's the next area, where's the kind of like where things are flowing, where are we needed the most, where's our biggest value add. So it's fascinating that you found yours in women's athletics, and that Jane Fonda took it on. One of the things, I'm the father of 4 kids. 2 of them are boys, and they're sneakerheads. Okay? I don't know if you're familiar with the
Okay.
terms. I went to a number of sneaker conventions recently, and there's just in the last several years, I don't know if you've ever seen something like that. In the last several years, we're talking about conventions that everyone's showing up with their sneakers, all sorts of designs, and some of them are rare. And it's just like way back in the day, we used to trade cards, and it was
Yes.
very rare cards. Today, it's all about sneakers. And it's,
That's it.
each one is hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Some of them reach over a couple of $1,000s. There's collaborations with all sorts of amazing brands and high brands. Have you ever seen something like this? And what do you think causes this, especially in sneakers?
Well, I've never been to one, but of course we're very well aware of what goes on there. That the sneaker business, the second-hand sneaker business, is incredible. What causes it? I think it's a phenomenon that has happened because sneakers. Everybody now has at least a pair of sneakers. You look on the street now, and we're fashion. We are high fashion. So being fashion, it's fashionable now to wear sneakers with a dress suit, with a tuxedo. I mean,
Oh,
all these things come in. So, and then you get, if over a period of time, you get somebody like Jordan, and he becomes a legend. So his products become a legend. And if you look at the products, we're looking now, in fact, probably even some of the more recent launches are really retro. They've gone back to 20,
absolutely.
30 years.
Absolutely.
So
I love it.
yeah, the company with the history can do
Mhm.
these retros, and Adidas, Nike, and Reebok. And Reebok, we have a tremendous history. We can go back over 100 years, so we can bring that. And I think that's what's driving this. The fact that it's like you say with vintage cars, a good vintage car gets a lot of money. Get Jordans, the Air Jordans. Some of those they're now so rare, and the companies have learned how to limit the edition. So you bring an edition out and you
Mhm.
limit it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't keep that same one going and going and going. You move on.
Yes.
But then
Yes.
you go back and you reissue it with just some differences, color,
That's
slight
it.
difference.
Yeah.
And
The law of scarcity.
that's right.
That's right. That's amazing. We just got a message that we're sort of like out of time. I really, really wanted to thank you
It's a
taking the
pleasure.
time. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor, I have to say, and I want to wish you great health and wonderful, wonderful prosperity now and in the future for you, for your loved ones. Take care of yourself, and again, thank you for being part of Astor Realty Capital's um, Zoom call. God bless. Take care.
It's been a pleasure. Been a pleasure, Joseph. And hope one day we can meet in Miami because we love Florida.
I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so.